everyone, my name is Dr. Jamie Johnson. I am the Interim Director for the School of Law Enforcement and Justice Administration. And welcome to WIU Inside the System, sponsored by Western Illinois University. Today we have a very special guest with us today. We have Chief Joe Henning. He has been our leader of our fire program. Oh my goodness, probably for the last 7 years, 8 years, I believe. Yeah. And so he has been the one who pretty much has transformed our program to where it is today. So today, Chief Henning, it is an honor to have you here. The goal of this episode is to let students get to know you more on a personal basis, to let prospective students get to know what you're like, maybe a little bit about the program, right, and how it runs, and just to have an open conversation, right? Okay, so, all right, okay, so Joe, first, again, welcome. I just really want to know, because here's the number one question I got is, okay, from your fire people, how did you get in to ever want to become a firefighter? So they want your life story, Joe.
All right. Well, let's get started. Might take a while. So no.
That's okay. That's all right. It's your time, sir.
Okay. All right. So honestly, growing up, I was not one of those kids that aspired to be a firefighter. I did have a fire truck, you know, but that's what every kid has at that age, right? But I aspired to. I actually, when I graduated high school, went to college to study accounting.
Really?
Did that for a couple of years. I realized that was not my thing.
Okay.
You know, so I made a switch and ended up getting a degree in management. But along the way, during my time in high school, I joined a fire department explorer post. Just because, more than anything, it just sounded like fun. So I did that. I was very involved in scouting. Scouting was a huge part of my life. So I was already an Eagle Scout, was looking for that next step. So I got involved with exploring. And I got a taste of firefighting, and again, I enjoyed it. Even had a chance to go and compete on the national stage a couple of times and do some stuff like that. And I had a blast, but I didn't really think that was my calling. Went to college, studied, again, like I said, accounting, switched to management. I moved back to Quincy and graduated from Quincy University. But while I was there, I married, at the time, the daughter of my exploring advisor. And So he said to me, "Did you ever think about taking the fire department test?" It's like, you know, I don't know. He's like, "Well, why don't you at least take it?" I got married while I was still in college. So I took the test. And when it came time to graduate, I actually had been going through the process to work for the Boy Scouts. I was going to be a professional scouter.
Really?
Yeah, and I got a call from the Boy Scouts the same week I got a call from the Quincy Fire Department.
Okay.
And I asked my wife at the time, "Do you want to stay here or do you want to move to the Upper Peninsula of Michigan?" And the response was, "I don't want to leave Quincy." So I took the fire department gig, and the rest is history. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was an interesting path.
It was accounting. That's where you started out, right? Then you end up in management.
Yep. Which definitely came into play later on. So that worked out. So yeah.
I know. Okay. So. Exactly. That's amazing. Okay, so I think that's really, really cool. All right, okay, so can you tell us, because here's one thing I get a lot is, what interesting stories can you talk about throughout your career to say, hey, this was expected or maybe not expected? What can you provide that student to say, oh, okay, this can happen to you. Okay, it happened to me.
Yeah. You know, the beauty of firefighting, and I relay this a lot in class, is no 2 days are the same. You just never know what you're going to encounter as far as unusual experiences or anything like that. You know, I've been on calls, rescue calls, where I've had to extricate a child's hand from a toy machine where they're trying to, you know, swipe a toy and they got stuck, so we had to take them apart. We've had to extricate, so had to extricate dogs who have gotten their heads stuck in fences. One time we went on a call, a lady was buck naked in the bathtub, had her toe stuck in the faucet because she was just doing that lounging thing, you know, and you just never know what's going to pop up. So
Okay. How did you do that one?
Well, you know, just a little bit of a creative movement and some soap and you get it done. But it's more just getting people to relax and quit freaking out. And a lot of times they can work themselves out of the situation. But
I bet that was pure panic.
I don't know about panic. It was just like, holy cow, what are we going to do here? You know, you're trying to maintain the humility of everybody, and it's very awkward, you know.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a question. Okay, so my question. All right. So so when you went through your training to say maybe what you're seeing now, how has training either progressed, not progressed? What's your first thoughts on that?
It's changed a lot. You know, another thing I tell my students, if you're joining the fire service, you need to be committed to being a lifelong learner. You know, one of the things I teach in my tactics and strategy class, when I first came on the fire department, when I went through academy, one of the things we were taught was you never directed a fire stream into a window. Because if you did that, you ran the risk of pushing heat down on victims and firefighters and scalding them, burning them, whatever the case may be. The science now tells us one of the first things we should do, we do what's called a transitional attack now, and we put water into the window when we first get there to try to cool the conditions and make them more tenable for the victims inside as crews are getting ready to deploy hand lines and go in. So we've come a complete 180 degrees. We used to never put water in the window, and now one of the first things we do is we put water in the window, cool the conditions down, hopefully make it survivable, then we go in and put out the fire, perform rescue, do all the things that go along with that.
Okay.
So it's a big change, you know what I mean? And a lot of that's coming out of, NIST, the National Institute for Safety and Technology, NIOSH, all these different organizations, Underwriters Laboratory are doing so much work studying fire dynamics. There was a big study that took place at a place called Governor's Island in New York where they studied wind-driven fires. And we're just learning so much about what's happening inside of a fire. We thought we knew, but now the science is telling us otherwise because we have instrumentation, we have the ability to do side-by-side studies, and we're just learning a lot. And it's really changing how we do our job.
Oh, that's huge.
Yeah.
How have you seen, let's say, for example, we'll come back to you in a second, but say like the generality is, say, when you started the mentality to the mentality of the student today, have you seen a change there?
Of the student?
Of the student.
Yeah, I think, back in the day, when people would look to get a career in firefighting, it was mostly because of pretty good benefits. It's a public safety sector pension. It's a good, sturdy job. You know what I mean? Now, I think students are looking for something that's more aligned with passions that they have, wanting to serve. Not that firefighters all through history haven't wanted to serve, but but their approach is a little bit different now. It's more about quality of life. Not only what can I get out of it, but what can I do to make somebody else's life better. And I really do think customer service, quote unquote, which was a catchphrase for a long time, it's still there, but it's about serving and just improving quality of life.
Well, yeah, and even on, say, for example, the medic side, correct? Okay. Back when you started, was paramedic pushed pretty heavy, or to compare it to now, do you see the national trend that paramedic is more prevalent now than when it was back then?
Absolutely. When I came on the job, we had one paramedic on the department, and actually he was a medic nurse, and then just decided he worked in the ER as well as the fire department. So that really wasn't a thing. About 10 years into my career, our local situation, it looked like the entity, which at the time was Adams County Ambulance Service, was thinking about getting out of the ambulance business. So we all of a sudden, the chief at the time decided we need to position ourselves to be prepared to potentially get in the ambulance business. So 9 of us got selected. I was one of the lucky ones, and I went to paramedic school. So yeah. So now with that said, Adams County Ambulance ended up passing a tax referendum and has grown into an awesome organization, to be honest with you. And we didn't end up taking over the ambulance. But with that said, that was our first foray as a department into paramedicine. And the Quincy Fire Department now, we have 60 firefighters on that department. Half of them are paramedics. And we run dual response with the ambulance. We run as an ALS backup to them. We don't transport, but we're very involved in the MS scene in Quincy. So I would say when you look at paramedicine now, it's an absolute vital part of the fire service. That's why we've created our Firemedic degree here at Western.
Yes, sir.
Because when I talk to kids coming out of high school, I tell them, because I have a few that say I have no interest in emergency medicine. It's like, well, then you may want to consider a different career path because the fire service of today, and there are a few departments that don't work in EMS, but they are very few. Most departments, especially when you get up into the bigger city areas, Chicagoland, all that, you have to be a paramedic to even take on an application. So paramedic is huge, and that's the beauty of the program we have here. Paramedic programs are also very difficult to get into because they're sponsored by hospitals and ambulance services, and unless you're a member of that organization, you're probably not going to go in. For example, we just had one of our students get sworn in at the Skokie Fire Department this week. He came through before we had the medic program. He's been trying to get into a medic program. He's on a 2-year wait list to even get in. And the beauty is when students come to us and join our program, they're guaranteed admittance. And that's not an easy thing to find. So I think Western has positioned itself to truly help people that want to work in the fire service become marketable and have the skill sets and the prerequisites necessary to do the job.
Oh, I totally agree with you. I totally agree and fully support you on that.
Yeah, no, it's
as far as like say a fire medic blend, I mean, how many of those around the country? I mean,
Well, when you look at bachelor's programs, there's very few. I'm thinking there's maybe a couple other in the country, and that's about it. You know, you can certainly go to a community college and either do the fire route, do the medic route, but it's pretty uncommon to do everything. And I like to market us as a one-stop shop. You get that 4-year baccalaureate degree. You get your Firefighter Pro Board, which is a national certification. You also have the opportunity to get your Illinois Firefighter certification. You have an opportunity to become a National Registry paramedic. All of these things are things that our fire departments are looking for. You know, in fact, when I was at Skokie, you know, I took a couple students with me, and the chief's like, "Hey, we're hiring." You know what I mean? Telling the students, when you're ready, come see me, because they recognize that we're prepping students to enter the fire service.
Well, I love it too, because out of every major within my school, right, none of them can be taken over by AI. And and I know all my AI lovers are going to be going, okay.
They do play a role in homework, unfortunately, but
yeah, they do, don't they? We'll get into that later. Okay. Okay, so Joe, I have a question for you. What do you believe, and you may have a couple, I know I have like a few. Okay, what do you believe your biggest failure was? Okay, going through either your schooling, your training.
Sure. Yeah.
Enlighten our students, because they want to know you're human, Joe.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Failures, they come every step of the way, whether we like it or not. You know, probably my most notable ones came as I was fire chief. You know, I never entered the fire service with the notion of being chief. It just kind of happened over time, and you can get humbled sometimes. You know, you get caught up in whether it's the politics. You know, just trying to do the right thing, whatever the case may be. And sometimes you make a decision when you look back on it, it's like, you know, I could have handled that one a little bit differently.
Oh, of course, yes.
And unfortunately, those things could affect relationships. It's very difficult to make that transition from being a line firefighter to administration. And as much as you want to hold on to those relationships and still be that guy that could go out and have a drink on a Friday night with them, sometimes it's better not to put yourself in that position for everybody involved, whether you're the administrator or the firefighter.
That's correct.
And I didn't handle some of that transition as well as I would have liked to. And again, that's where things like, for example, our fire administration degree give you an opportunity to delve into that and understand that a little bit more before you step into that role.
Oh,
you know,
correct.
And you know, I had some good mentors along the way, and I know we're going to talk about that, but that's probably one thing we didn't talk about as much, and I definitely try to share with people coming behind me. It's like, you know what, stop, smell the roses, maintain relationships, but understand when it's appropriate to maintain distance or not. But yeah, it was just a difficult landscape to navigate, you know, so I would say that was probably my shortcoming.
I agree. And here's the thing too, I mean, my 20-year-old self versus say now in leadership roles, the one thing I've disdained throughout my entire career, politics. Yeah. Okay, right? Yeah. So
I came here because I thought I would leave all the politics behind, you know, but I've learned it doesn't matter what organization you're in, there's going to be a certain element
politics,
of it. Yeah,
right?
yeah, exactly.
Not that it's bad. Okay, so that makes sense, right? Just not for me, right? Okay, so we just kind of like getting the job done, and a lot of times it's going to be, we're on that practitioner model, or very pragmatic. So no, I totally got it. Absolutely. Okay, so now here's a deep dive. Okay, so now, if you could talk to your 18-year-old, I see his look already, 18-year-old self, right? What advice would you give them now, knowing everything that you know?
So for myself personally. Yeah, you know, my career took an interesting trajectory. I started in '93, promoted to company officer in '99, and by 2002, I was in administration. So I only spent 9 years working the line out of a 28-year career. If I had it to do over again, I probably would have spent more time on the line. You know, now a lot of things that went into my thought process when I had the opportunity to promote and I moved in as a training officer. And while I enjoyed that immensely, I did it because I thought it was going to help family life. You know, I could have a regular schedule, be home Monday through Friday. Well, you know, when you move into administration, that's the exact opposite of what happens. You may think you have a better life, but it tends to take you other directions, as you know. So, you know, again, just looking back, I would have liked more time on the line, you know, developing skills further, but more importantly, you develop some lifelong relationships, and you know, it's hard to walk away from some of that kind of stuff. So I probably would have spent a little more time doing that.
I got it. Because I mean, the average age of our people coming in are right around 18. Yeah. Okay, and it's, you get some, this is what I see, you get some that are, man, they're so serious. Okay, and it's just like they can't make a mistake. Okay, right? And then you get some that are like, oh, we have to study. You get these spectrums, okay? And they get in the middle, right? And the one thing I've told them all is like, you're going to make mistakes. It is that adaptability and overcoming it. We've all made them. I'm going to make 10 million more today. Okay, right? We try to learn and get better, and I got it. Okay, so here's where we're at. So Tell me, and it could be more than this, but I want at least three. Three influential people that really made a mark. It could be on you as a person, or it could be on your career.
Okay.
What's your thoughts on that?
Probably the first one would be, his name was Ron Hincamper. He was my exploring advisor, my first father-in-law. He passed away about 7 years ago now, but the role he played in my life, you know, again, when I was an explorer, I was doing it more for fun.
Sure.
But at the same token, I'm the kind of guy, when I get in, I'm all in. So during my time as an explorer, I ended up, you know, running the Explorer Post. I then became the Illinois State Exploring Chairman. I then served on the National Exploring Cabinet, and I did all this as a youth, and he was there every step of the way. I came from a background where there wasn't a lot of financial ability to do things, and he helped make that happen. I know when I served on the National Exploring Cabinet, I had to be in Colorado, I had to be in South Carolina. He took me everywhere. We traveled together.
Oh, that's huge.
And he supported me every step of the way. And then, you know, he retired before I got on the fire department, so we never worked together. There's about a 3-year gap between his retirement and my start, but I know it meant the world to him when I took the job as a firefighter. More importantly, when I got promoted to chief. You know, I think for him, he saw that as being a full circle moment. For me, it was absolutely a full circle moment, because I would not have had the opportunity to get there were it not for his support. And along the way, you know, he was my father-in-law for 25 years. So it wasn't just professional, hunting together, building together. I learned so much from that man, both from a career perspective and a personal perspective. And again, I value that relationship. So that's one. The second one is my uncle. His name is Max Onderbeck. He's my uncle, but he's not that much older than me. He and my mom were separated by many years. And, you know, when I was growing up, when I was preteen age, he was in the Navy. And I just remember having a really close relationship with him, but I remember him, anytime he came back, he'd take my brother and I, you know, and he would just invest time in us. And a lot of people may or may not know this. I grew up in a household with 2 deaf parents. And one of the first things that he did is he gave me a stereo. Now that may not sound like much, but in a house where there was no noise, you know, he gave me a stereo system. He gave me my first album. I'm a huge Beach Boys fan till this day, because it was the Endless Summer album. And I played that album all the time, you know, and then my grandmother on the heels of that gave me a Charlie Daniels album, because a lot of people don't know I played the viola in high school. I was in the orchestra.
I did not know
yeah,
that.
so I played the viola, and my grandmother wanted me to learn to play fiddle like Charlie. So she, you know, went down to Georgia, just don't say the cuss words, but she wanted me to play like that. So,
I love it.
So my uncle giving me that stereo played a big part in my development. And you know, early on, I was in special ed, had IEPs, because I had to learn how to talk, because I was in a quiet household. So, but not only that, but he just showed me what it was like to be a man. He showed me what it was like to take care of family, to value family, and he was there supporting me every step of the way, so I appreciated that. And then the third one's my mother. You know, again, grew up in a deaf household. In the 70s, it was very difficult for people with disabilities at the time to find employment. So there was a lot of times where, you know, we were scraping to get by, but my mom made sure that no matter what the situation, I had access to. When I was in scouting, for example, I would collect aluminum cans, I would mow grass, do everything I could to get money to go to scout camp. I had a newspaper route, but I was also very involved in scouting, so I was gone a lot. My mom would fill in for me. She would do everything for me. She would sacrifice the shirt off her back to make sure I had opportunities. And, you know, unfortunately, she passed away about 5 years ago. And but I know she was another person that was just extremely thrilled with where I ended up at, and I couldn't have done it without her. So those were probably the 3 most influential people. And then a lot of my scouting leaders. Again, you know, to me, scouting was just a huge part of my formative years in terms of developing me into a leader, but also just giving me opportunity. That's why I feel such an obligation to give back to the fire service and to scouting, because those 2 things made me the individual I am today.
Well, that's huge.
Yeah, it is.
And
Absolutely.
you really had a strong supporting.
Oh yeah,
That-
absolutely.
You know, I mean, sometimes, you know, you hear not as much. Okay, does that make sense, right? And that's wonderful. That is absolutely
If you want to hear a story, just a funny story real quick. So
Yeah.
my grandmother, I'll use her as an example. Again, you know, money was tight. I had a cousin who worked for Eagle Foods at the time. He'd go in and remodel stores. But
I remember Eagle Foods.
Yeah. So he was the head of maintenance for Eagle Corporation.
Yeah.
So he'd travel around the country. But back in the day, when cans would lose labels or get dented, food cans, they'd put them in banana boxes, and they'd sell them to employees for $5. So my grandmother would buy cases of those, and we called them shiners. And she'd buy cases of them and send them with us, so we'd have food to eat. But you'd get a can, you open it up, you wouldn't know if it was kidney beans or SpaghettiOs or whatever. My grandmother was such a meticulous person. She would take the codes and write them down, and she developed a key that we could actually use. So after a couple of years, because we did that for quite a while, it's like, okay, I want this, and I'd go down, I'd look for that code, and I'd get it. You know, the fact that she put that time, she didn't need to do that. You know, they lived 3 hours away.
Yeah.
My granddad worked in Rock Island at John Deere, but they were always supporting us. You know what I mean? And again, that whole family, my grandparents, my uncle, they all played a big role in that. So,
Oh, that's amazing.
yeah, just a fun story. But
That is amazing. That's huge. I'm sorry, that's just huge. Okay, so you got a student starting out. What advice, or could be, okay, right, would you give to any student starting out wanting to become you or just get into the fire service?
A couple of things, you know, one, if you're going to enter the fire service, again, be dedicated to education and learning. That's not an easy commitment to make because it's a lot of work. You know, everybody says they want to come in and help people, and that's what we do. But you also got to help yourself get there. You know what I mean? You have to invest the time in yourself to become that person. So I would say that first of all. Once they get into the career path, I tell my students, if you aspire to be a chief officer at some point, I think some of the greatest avenues to get there are to work either in training or in public education. Because you could be the best boots on the ground firefighter, and that's an important skill, but as you move up into the administrative ranks, you need some of those other skills, the ability to speak, the ability to convey thoughts in the written word, confidence, you know, all of that comes with either teaching, whether it's the public or firefighters, you know, so it opens the door for opportunities to help them along their career path. So I encourage them to do that. And then, you know, the last thing is invest in the relationships within the department itself. You know, some of my best friends have come out of the fire service. You know, those can be great times. I've had awesome times. You know, sometimes you do stupid things and get in trouble too. That comes with the territory. But
yes, it does.
but you're going to look back on that and you're going to value those relationships. And honestly, you know, like my partner, when I came on the department in 1993, the guy I went to academy with, his name was Greg Dreyer. We went to fire academy together. We ended up chief and deputy chief of the department. So our career paths kind of mirrored each other all the way up. Really cool. And we spent 12 years essentially running that department. And even though I was the chief, I recognized that both Greg and I had another deputy chief, Steve Sauer. Those two men are what made our department the success that it was during our tenure there. We worked as a team. Now, I understood at the end of the day the buck would stop with me, but at the same token, I was very much a collaborative leader. I wanted feedback. I understood that the responsibility would lie with me, but I didn't want a yes man. I wanted a person that was going to tell me what they thought. And we had some pretty interesting conversations behind closed doors. But we had the ability to walk forward and put a unified front forward, and that's important too. So again, that's the other thing is, you know, have your say, have your piece, but when it comes time to put forward a message, make sure you're all on the same page.
Oh, I totally agree. Yeah, and I really like hearing about team. So I think that's absolutely clear. Now, as far as like students today, the one thing, this is a weakness that I've seen, okay, right? And I'm not attacking all new students. I want this absolutely clear, okay, right? Tech. So, for example, I've had students that can't talk on the phone. Silly. I know this you may think I'm silly on this one. No, can't talk on the phone. Their comment is, can you just text me? Well, no, I need to talk to you verbally, okay, at least, right? Despise public speaking because they simply don't do it. And they're good if they're gaming. Oh, okay. I want that clear, right?
Headset on.
Exactly, right? So what steps would you tell that student to say, look, how do we get you better, okay? I mean, sometimes we just can't throw them in front of a class and say, go, because they're going to be like, I'm going to freak out, okay, right? What steps would you outline for that student who is so and you see the students today, right? Okay, or so VR'd or whatever it is, and now we're saying you got to work with a human and you got to talk to a human. Like if we did an interview like this, I know with some of my current generation students, it'd be rough. Yeah. Okay, right?
They wouldn't even look you in the eye.
No, they would be like, "Can we text the interview?" Right. Okay, now you might say, "Oh, gee." Okay, all right. What advice would you give them?
I think it starts by surrounding yourself with like-minded people that have similar goals. You know, one of the things, and we don't talk a lot about this, but the concept of a living learning community in some of the dorms.
Oh, yeah.
Being around students that are in your chosen profession allows you to start working on those soft skills pretty early on. I encourage our students, you know, even when they go back, you know, to the dorm, like for example, in my tactics and strategy class, we do communications training. We talk on radios, we learn how to do that, we learn how to convey thoughts. I encourage them, I say, go back and practice it in the dorm. you're not going to look like a complete dork because everybody on your living learning community is doing the same thing. You know what I mean? So it's okay. But it's a chance just to get together and practice. Put the phone down. The beauty of what we do in the fire service, just like any emergency field, we don't have the ability to do that because we're in the moment. You know what I mean? And you have to understand that need to communicate is so vital in an emergency situation because we need to be very concise, very direct. We still need to be compassionate, okay? But if we can't convey those thoughts in a concise manner, bad things can happen. So if I need a victim or a patient to do something, I need to be able to articulate that. They need to be able to understand it and act upon it. And if I don't have that ability, I'm not going to be successful. So going back to the small groups, we have Fire Club, for example. Our kids go through Fire Academy. They come back and they join Fire Club. You're going to be hard pressed to find a tighter knit group of kids because they've developed those interpersonal relationships and they do have the ability to talk. I love just hanging out with them and listening. Because I'm that old guy that has nothing to contribute, but I'm happy to listen. It's kind of revitalizing to me. In fact, like for example, this Wednesday night, we're just having to get together. We're going to get together. We're going to have a bonfire. We're going to make some chili, and we're just going to talk because developing those relationships and developing that ability to have the conversation is going to serve them well. And it starts very informally, but that will segue into more, pertinent aspects and applications of that.
Okay, so Joe, here's the next question I got for you, right? Okay, so what is the one thing in your career that you simply didn't expect? You didn't see it coming. On the firefighting side, what was unexpected?
Honestly, to me, it was the amount of training that went into the job. And granted, I came in the early 90s and my advisor at the time came in the 70s, and you had seen a little bit of a transformation into the value. But I can remember walking into the firehouse one of the first days on the job, and I happened to have a bachelor's degree at the time. And I remember a guy telling me, because I went over to get one of the training manuals. We called them IFSTA manuals, the red books. He's like, what are you going to do with that book? Throw it at the fire? And there wasn't value placed necessarily at the time on the educational side of things. Because we talk a lot in the fire service about you got to know the why before you know the how. You know what I mean? And that's very important. There's two aspects of that. And there's so much that goes into the fire service because, like I tell students, when someone calls 911, unless it's a bad guy, or obviously a medical emergency, pretty much any other emergency gets sent to the fire department. And we need problem solvers. We need people that are prepared to, whether it's a high angle rope rescue, whether it's firefighting, whether it's confined space, you name it, we've got to be able to do that. And hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours go into learning that stuff. And you spend a lot of time away, whether you like it or not, away from home. You got to go here for 2 weeks worth of training. You go here for a deployment. And I just didn't realize that it would get that in depth. Now, again, firefighters choose their career paths. Some firefighters choose not to be that involved, but the ones that truly want to get the most out of their career and give the most back are going to be busy. It's that training. Absolutely.
They're going to train.
Absolutely.
Well, that makes sense. And here's one I get a lot. Whether it's law enforcement, emergency management, whatever. The students watched a lot of TV. Okay, so whether that be your Netflix, Hulu, what Disney, blah blah blah. Okay, whatever platform, right? Is there a show, out there, I see the look, that does anything accurately with fire?
It's interesting. In my firefighter safety and survival class, the first assignment I have is I have a list of like 8 movies, and I tell them to pick one. And I give them a list of questions about, what did you see that was realistic? What wasn't realistic? And some of this is gauged on maybe they don't have the experiences to know yet, but we get into that conversation. I'll go back to my exploring days. Backdraft was a good one. I remember going with my exploring advisor in my post to watch that movie. And we're watching that, and I remember my advisor dropping an expletive, but he's like, oh, that's bull. It's like, that's not what it's like, because you got Kurt Russell running in with his coat open, no air pack on. He can run right to the victim because he can see him, and we know that firefighting is done in the dark. You know what I mean? You can't see your hand in front of your face. A lot of times it's intense heat conditions. It's confusing. It's smoky. It's hot. It's just a lot different than what you see on TV. Now, it would be pretty boring cinema if they portrayed it accurately, so I get why they do that. But shows nowadays are getting a little better about trying to depict that, but there's also still some pretty ridiculous stuff. People are like, you watch Chicago Fire, what do you think of Chicago Fire? And I watched it for a while, but what's kind of cool about Chicago Fire, a couple of the people that are stars on that show are very actively involved at the Illinois Fire Service Institute, which is the state training, and they come down and there's a guy he plays a character named Herman. I think he's a company officer now. He comes down and does light and fights all the time, and he puts the gear on and he goes in with the firefighters. He's experiencing it.
Yeah.
He's given them a really cool access to a Hollywood star,
yeah.
but he also views them as being the true stars. You know what I mean? Because if he wants to depict the job as realistically as possible, he understands that he needs to experience it. So I think that gives him the ability to at least bring a little more realism to the role because he's actually doing it. Not everybody's going to. You hear about movie stars studying for the role. You know, it's one thing to study being a firefighter. It's another to put on an air pack and actually go in and sweat and work and do all that and come out and then turn around 5 minutes later and do it again. You know what I mean? So there are some shows and some people that are working to make it more realistic, but it's still pretty far-fetched in most cases. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because, their eyes are big and then it's going to be exciting and da-da-da-da. And, we see with law enforcement a lot of times, they're like, oh my goodness, I'm going to be solving this. I'm going to have this criminal. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. And they don't realize you're probably going to sit at the desk. I'm not, okay, this is a good thing. I'm not saying a bad thing, okay? Right. For at least 8 hours a day doing paperwork. And then you might get that 10 or 15 minutes of.
Yeah. Firefighting is like 95% of your life is preparing and 5% of excitement. That's kind of what I like to say. But we got to train for those moments because in those moments, it's time to perform, So all that prep does pay off in the end. So
here's a question. I know throughout my career, I've seen a lot of people weed out. It's either they weed out in water or they weed out in claustrophobic areas. Now, I know with your equipment on, claustrophobia has to be an issue. Yep. How do you prepare a student for that? I know a lot, because here's what I know from my past. Anyone claustrophobic? No. Anyone worried about water? No. We get in it, oh my goodness, look at the people fall. They're like flies. Okay, is that making sense, right? Yep. How do you prepare a student first for claustrophobia? Because I got to ask it because they don't really do it well on the shows, as well as is there a way to train them through it?
So, one of the first things you do in the fire service to get hired is you take what we call the CPAT exam, Candidate Physical Ability Agility Test. And in that exam, one of the components is going through a confined space that's darkened with strobe lights, and it's not a super intense thing, but if you're claustrophobic, it's intense enough that people will wash out as simply as that. And then the other thing that's coupled with that is a ladder climb. Fear of heights is a big one. We had a 102-foot platform truck, and when you're standing on the top of that 102-foot platform truck, and it's a little breezy, and it doesn't have to be very breezy, and that thing's doing this, I'll say that I'm not afraid of heights, but I'm not a fan. You know what I mean? I can do it, Would that be the first job I'd volunteer for on the fire ground? Probably not, but I have the ability to do it. So a lot of it, to your point about how you train them through it, is you got to put people in that position. You got to build their confidence. You got to make sure they have people with them to walk them through every step of the way. But at the end of the day, for example, a fear of heights, some people just can't overcome it, just like claustrophobia. We have some people, when you put that, it's one thing to put a face piece on, but then to take you and put you into a confined space. We do a lot of what we call confidence courses where we wear the SCBA and we learn, but we will put you through some pretty tight holes. I mean, I know at our fire academy for Western, we've had some kids that, bigger guys that are football players, they're like, I'm not going to fit through that hole. It's like, well, actually you are, and we're going to teach you the technique. You have the ability. First, you got to build their confidence. You got to let them do it. And this is one fault I see a lot in fire service training. A lot of people want to immediately take a student, put them in an air pack, black it out, and put them into a really tough situation. That's not the way to build confidence, okay? You got to take baby steps. Get them comfortable in the gear. Then do the course with the lights on. Then maybe turn the lights off. Then start to introduce some of the obstacles. But if you don't do it in small steps, you're going to lose people. And we invest way too much time and effort in getting people into the fire service that we shouldn't be doing foolish things to wash them out. So not everybody's going to get there. That's the reality of it, and that's why firefighters have probationary periods, because sometimes you just know, and I even tell this to students, I get asked a lot by fire chiefs, why do fire students at Western go through academy freshman year instead of senior year? And my response is this: not everybody knows what they want to do when they go to college, first of all, and secondly, not everybody's cut out to be a firefighter. By the time you go through academy in spring of your freshman year, you're going to know if you made the right choice or not. And if you did, we've set the hook and they're here for the duration. But if they found it not to be an enjoyable experience, there's still plenty of time for them to pivot and do something else. Not that I want to tell people we're setting them up for failure, because that's not the goal. But we also have to recognize, and we've got to be very blunt, because they're choosing a career field where you got to be able to perform. And if you can't do it, I'd rather you know now than after you invested 4 years in a college degree and, you know, trying to get certifications and then realize you're just not cut out for that. So we've built our program in a manner to give you that ability to discern pretty early on if you've made the right choice or not. So
That's excellent. That's excellent.
So it works. So
I love it. Okay, so then we're going to transition to what I call it kind of silly time, but your students have questions. Okay, so, and again, if there's a question you don't want to answer, you just say pass. I'm going to move on. Okay, is that making sense, right? And depending on what you say, I may actually probe. Okay, right? Okay. And of course, you can say pass on a probe. Okay. All right. Okay, so student-oriented questions, here they come. Number one, okay? All right, dog or cat?
dog.
Why?
I have dogs. I grew up with cats. Don't have a problem with cats, but I think dogs have more personality. They're just more fun. And you could take them out and do things. Cats don't want to hang out with you, and yeah, it's just, I like the personality.
What's your favorite dog?
Favorite dog? Wow.
Breed, I should say breed. There you go.
My little buddy Maggie. She was a Schnauzer. Had her for a long time. She did pass away this past summer, but no, it's. Schnauzers can be very pretentious and all that, but she was the type of dog that just, as soon as I walk in the door, beeline to me. We hung out all the time. Yeah. You develop that bond, and that just, to me, that was awesome. So,
loyalty to the end, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
I know the feeling. Yeah. Okay, so what is your favorite color? This one through, yeah.
Probably red, I guess. I don't. Yeah.
Okay, red. Now, see, everyone.
I've had a lot of red pickup trucks, so okay. I guess it must be red.
Okay, so favorite color is red. Now I'm colorblind. I'm profoundly. Okay, so what color of red is this? A dark red, a light red? What are we dealing with here?
It's probably a brighter red, actually. Yeah.
Isn't that the same color?
I do like blue too. My wife would probably say blue, but I don't know. I don't know that I have a real affinity about anything, to be honest with you.
Okay, so you said red. Now you said wife says blue. Okay, right. So I have a question for you. So on the blue, dark blue or light blue?
Dark blue, for sure.
Okay, so you like the dark.
I do.
Embedded colors. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, at least one is fire truck, right?
It's interesting. I show a video to my class on the fire truck manufacturing process. Yeah. And Pierce Manufacturing, we use their video. Yeah. There's like 150 shades of red. You got to choose, So it's like, which one, So
I know. These are hard, okay? What is the last book you read?
I love to read books on the FBI and the Secret Service and presidential details. So I read one recently on the presidential detail assigned to Ronald Reagan during his assassination attempt. So I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but I honestly, the only time I read books is when I go on vacation. We'll go away for 5 days and I'll bring like 2 or 3 books and read them because I like to just sit by the pool and read. That's one of my favorite things to do on vacation. So
I've grown,
and maybe drink a beer, but
my family would say I've gotten boring. I like to stare either at like a Great Lake or an ocean, and I sit down and I stare. Okay, it's pretty sad, isn't it?
It's a lot like hunting. That's what I like to do when I'm in a tree. I like to just sit in a tree and look around. So yeah.
Okay, you brought up hunting. I have to ask. Okay, so what is your favorite style of hunting? Bow hunting, shotgun. Okay.
Bow hunting for sure. I was driving here this morning, and every field there was a car or a truck parked. It's 36 degrees this morning, and I'm like, man, it'd be really cool to be out there right now. But it's a work calls. Work calls.
We appreciate you being here.
No, I'm not going to get to do much of it this year, unfortunately. So, but that's all right.
Thanks. So, what are you using for your bow? Are you a Matthews person? What do you like?
I have a Hoyt, actually.
Oh, you're Hoyt.
Yeah, and it's an older one, because I'm kind of tight. So I just stick with old reliable, and it gets the job done. So,
I got it.
Interesting story. So and I've had this bow for a while. I was thinking about getting into bow hunting, but again, I didn't want to spend the money. I had entered a rubber duck race actually in Quincy, and where they dump them off the bridge, and I won. I won $1,000. So I had a buddy who had a climbing stand and a bow, and I'm like, I'll give you $1,000 for that. So I got it, and that set me up, and I still use them to this day. So
that is awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Be resourceful.
Okay, what is your favorite time of day? Morning, afternoon, or night?
Probably morning.
And has it always been morning, or has it?
No. I used to love to sleep in. That doesn't even happen anymore. For one dog's is one, but your eyes pop open at 6 in the morning, 5 in the morning, whatever the case may be. But I especially like it if I'm out camping. Yeah. I like to get up in the morning and kind of watch the world wake up. And the same thing with hunting. Hunting to me is more about just being outdoors and enjoying the nature. Yeah. And just kind of seeing the world wake up. And I just like that time of day.
Love it, love it, love it. What is your favorite TV show? There's one on right now called Shrinking. Shrinking? No, I've never heard of Shrinking.
It's got Harrison Ford and
Really?
Jason. I can't think of his last name, but it's about shrinks. But
Oh, okay, I got it.
yeah. But
Took me a while. I'm like,
But it's interesting because Harrison Ford, one of the main characters, is actually working through a progression of Parkinson's disease. So it talks about his journey with that. It's also very funny. I mean, it's just I like the lighthearted approach to it, but it still has a serious message. I just really enjoy that show. It's a lot of fun.
excellent. That's excellent. What's your favorite movie?
This is a weird one. Rockstar.
Rockstar.
Yeah, it's an old one with Mark Wahlberg. He
Mark Wahlberg, really?
Yeah.
I know who that is.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird one, but it's the story of a band
Okay.
who has been very popular, is still very popular, and their lead singer decides to leave.
Okay.
So they're going out recruiting a new lead singer. Wahlberg is the head of a tribute band who takes his job very seriously. He ends up getting the job. Okay. So he goes through all the pitfalls of being a rock star to the point where he burns out, so to speak, and the band replaces him. He goes, and then he starts over again and begins an acoustic career. Again, I'm a music guy, so I like that movie. It's also a lot of heavy metal, which I like that kind of music too. So yeah, it's just a fun movie.
Okay,
so
I gotta ask this. You said heavy metal. What's your heavy metal favorite band?
Oh, I like a lot of them. So I'm into dad rock kind of. I like Tool. That's a band that I like a lot. I've loved Metallica. I've had a chance. I took a couple of students that were seniors, and we went to a Metallica concert together, saw Metallica, Pantera, and Wolfgang Van Halen, and had a great time. So I just like that kind of stuff. So, but I also love classical music. I like everything. I mean, except maybe rap. I'm not a big rap guy. But.
I'm very dumb with music. That's what my wife would be like, "Yep, he's done with music." Okay, so but yeah, I am actually a Metallica fan. Yeah. Okay, so
I love Metallica.
Gotta love it. Okay, what's your favorite hobby?
Camping.
Okay.
Camping, scouting, that kind of stuff.
Got it.
Being outdoors.
What is a favorite skill set that no one knows about?
Of mine?
Yes.
Sign language. You know. Yeah.
Okay.
And that just came by default, obviously. But,
I understand that. Okay, last question.
All right.
Here it is. Ready? Favorite food?
Favorite food? Hot wings, by far.
Okay.
I will eat hot wings 7 days a week, given the opportunity. So
I know what to give you.
I love buffalo sauce with blue cheese. I like them extra saucy. My kids hate to go to dinner with me because they'll order hot wings too.
Yeah.
But I'll like mine extra saucy, and then everybody's come extra saucy. And my son will be like, I got to quit ordering hot wings when I'm with you because I don't like all this sauce on mine. I'm like, well, I do. So, so I started ordering it on the side so I didn't ruin their meal, but saucy hot wings.
So when you say hot wings, are you talking about the high spicy one?
I like a moderate heat. I don't want it so crazy that you can't eat it and pay for it down the road. You know what I mean? I want the heat to contribute to the flavor. I don't need the burn experience, so to speak. So, let's take a popular restaurant everybody knows, like Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah.
I'm a medium to hot, but not blazing kind of guy. You know what I mean?
I got it. I got it. Well, my son's into that, and it was.
Yeah, I'm not interested in the habanero and snot coming out of your nose when you eat it. That's not me. So yeah, don't want to do that. So.
So I was like, "Hey, Dad, try this." I'll pass. Yeah. I was like, "Well."
Exactly.
All right. Okay. Well, Joe, thank you so much for being here. I greatly appreciate it.
Yes. It's a pleasure.
Thank you for all your service to our program. It is simply amazing having you here.
It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed every step of it.
A tremendous asset and honestly a good friend. I appreciate you so much for that.
I appreciate everything you do for us too. So we're going to keep doing good things here.
I appreciate it, sir. All right. Okay, so that concludes our episode today, and we are so thankful that we have Chief Henning a part of our program. Please stay tuned for more episodes of WI Inside the System. Have a good day.